everybody, my name is Jessica Holyfield and I'm a professional dance choreographer and dance educator based out of the southeast of the United States, and we're going to be taking a look at Heya by Ive. I think that's how you say their name. I've never taken a look at an Ive piece before, but this one has been one that was recommended to me by quite a few of you for interesting reasons. I've heard some very conflicting things regarding how the choreography was done in the final version, so we're actually going to look at the music video, dance practice from Ive, as well as La Chica's demo, just so we can kind of do a play-by-play comparison and give my perspective as a choreographer and as somebody who's done movement direction for groups within a studio context. So without further ado, let's get started. Playful. Ah, I did hear about that. This is about a tiger eating the moon, or like a folk tale in cadence to that. Fun. Fun. So I mean, so far in the music video, the parts they picked are fun. I like it. Ooh. I like that ISO. Very catchy. That's cute. I mean, I like it. So far, it's great. I mean, here we go. We're going to look at the dance practice, which I feel like is where most of the hustle and bustle is going to be originating from. So we're going to go ahead and take a watch right here. Here we go. Okay, we're operating with an even number. That was cute. That was cute. Okay. That's a pretty visual. I liked that. That was cool. That's a fun way to come out of the formation. So the first half, I find interesting that we're choosing formations that don't help keep symmetry and balance for an even numbered group when you do a 1-point feature, like how they were setting it up. So I'm actually curious on how La Chica's demo looks. Because that second verse, I really like the format of the formations. They progressed well, fun ways to showcase your feature. Nice. Now I do know the section in question it's like a particular, it's near the end is what I've heard. So that's what I'm kind of waiting on, is to find like a awkward, like a super awkward section. So far it's not too awkward to me personally. Okay, people need to chill out? Does that make sense? It's kind of, that's so interesting. I was expecting like this Hot Mess Express, and this is cleaner than a lot of groups I've looked at before. I know exactly what part people are probably talking about. Is one person that ends up traveling like longer than everybody else. One of them right there. This is really not that bad, guys. Like, I was expecting it to be completely uncoordinated, it to be what is going on. I mean, but let's look at the demo. But I mean, maybe I was overhyping it in my head of it being like this crazy thing, but don't worry, y'all know me. They'll probably spend about 30 minutes talking about the whole choreography. This beginning is fun. I am curious, so they do end up with 6. Firstly, okay, look at the fact that we set the formation. I like that choice. The whole beginning, though, when you deal with a 1-point feature on an even number, it's going to look off balance, which is this right here. So that would be a note for La Chica, is that for this whole first verse, I like that choice. And also look at where the camera is angled. How they set it up in the fixed cam in Ive's dance practice didn't show the angle, so it was meant for a different look. That is cute. I like La Chica's choice on how they did the feature here versus what Ive did, because Ive traveled it instead of kept it up in their feature, because what ends up happening is it looks messy in comparison to there being clarity on who your feature is. And we have so many dancers here. Yeah, this is a completely different draft. I appreciate the split center here, but it does make you question who's your feature in that moment. Because remember, this is the first time I'm watching Ive. And that is something I look at choreography, is that it shouldn't be a guessing game for me. It's just a regular general person to know who my feature is. If you want me to be focused on whoever's singing, like that right there was very clear on who you wanted me to focus on. I mean, it looks... what's interesting is that how people were coming across, I'm not talking about my comments, just when I dug myself, they made it sound like they're so different, and I disagree. I mean, I don't think it's that different, if I'm being real with you. Now, is there energy in where they're promoting it different? Yeah. We're going to talk about that, though. Remember, they're artists that sing. They're not performers and dancers. They're also La Chica's movement quality. There's some implicit overlap between the members that Ive doesn't have, and that makes sense, and that's okay. But we're actually going to talk about the section in question first, because I feel like that's going to be what everybody's here for anyway, and let's just get that out of the way. This whole right here, this pull through, tap tap, are they the cleanest group in the world? No, it's not the cleanest routine. Can I see what's going on? Yes. Spread out is fine. Now, there's only one thing that is potential, like a note that I would recommend changing. So you have, people may think this is muddled, but this is a peel out where everybody's branching and making their own choice. One of them's a little bit more lagged behind, so it's a timing thing there. But it's her having her own feature moment. Probably not sure what she wants to do there. But I mean, looking, it's not... That's literally like 2 counts of question and everything else is clear. Like, if anything, if you're looking for synchronicity, go to another group. They're not known for that. So why are we holding them to that standard? It's a dance practice, right? I don't hold 17 to the standard of being super, super in sync on a choreography video when I could, but I'm not going to because I understand the scope of what they're doing. This is a dance practice on a group that's not known for synchronicity. So I'm not going to sit there and hold them to that. Also, some of the formations are not it's La Chica's choice and not their choice, which is why it feels off balance. So if anything, that's a note to the choreographers, not to them. But also La Chica, I like their choreo. I do. I was living in their Changhai era, and I know they're still there. But I'm going to advocate. Like, I'll stand my ground on this kind of stuff, you know. This doesn't bother me in the slightest. I'm kind of excited to talk about it. I like a lot of the choices. I just think just like I talk about a lot of hype groups or a lot of 5th gen, that's something I'm seeing a lot of debuts of even number groups. So I'm seeing this more and more of some of these formations are totally off balance and kind of challenge symmetry. And you notice it in the first verse, but then you see a progression in the second verse in a good way. So let's talk about this. From the beginning, I like the frame out. They did a good job. You can tell there's some hyperextension. So, and that's just a lot of times people have that. And for me, I would always want to have dancers fight to have some sense of engagement. But so far, I mean, nothing crazy. I mean, you have some very minimal angle discrepancies right here, you know. But I've had no one say that they're known for being a dance group, like hugely known as a dance group. They're not Dreamcatcher. They're not known for synchronicity. But you know what? Let me dive first before I finish that thought. I've returned, and I didn't see anything of what made them. They're not known as like a heavy dance group. They're not considered that as much. Some people even say that their stuff's simplistic and repetitive. In this case, in this particular one, remember, this is the first time I'm ever watching them, but I've heard all this information. I really think that this looks fine. I think they did a pretty decent job with the choreo. You know, La Chica's stuff's not the easiest in the world, and they got some degree of essence of it. Could it be cleaner? Always. Like, for real, you know, but it's something, like, I can very clearly see what's going on, and a lot of it has nothing to do with them but the logistics of the things surrounding them. So we're gonna dive through it. Here we go. I mean, we've already kind of touched on it. There's little accents there. So yeah, you can tell there's some discrepancies on the arm angles on this, you know, just having the accent. But they do end up using the back to maintain the angle of whatever they decided to commit to. So that would be my note, is to make sure everybody has a distinguished angle in order for them to isolate it over to the side. And I like, it's very clear to see that you have the bottom two in the levels. They have levels represented. That's something Lachika's really good at, is in establishing levels throughout group choreo. Looks great. You know, the rotation around, I mean, their range looks pretty decent here. I like the nice staccato picture moment there. That's fun. There's a subtlety there I noticed with one of our girls. She lifted her arm a little bit higher. It signifies that she would be my feature in that moment, and everybody else has a little bit more mid. Of course, clarification of the hands would make it a little bit easier for us to see what exactly they're going for. Branching it out and then having one of your members right there in front. Of course, that could be a little bit better in your spacing between line 2, which would be my group here and here. You know, it feels like a dance practice. You know, that's life. Dee dee, cool, little accent there. Da da. Now this right here, this is a Lachika formation. They set it up. It's just, I'm calling it what it is. It's off balance because you have one person in the middle. You have a group of 2 and a group of 3, so it's going to feel too heavy on this side in terms of people present. And of course, it's easy to see who your feature is. So that's my note to Lachika. I've seen a ton of their work, and I was a fan of them for Street Woman Fighter. So I'm not saying that's any ill intent, quite the opposite of admiration. I appreciate their movement quality and their choice of how they choose to choreograph. You know, this is something, though, when you deal with even number groups, this is what I say to most choreographers. Be very mindful when you have a point feature. If you're going to have a formation that's off balance like this, make sure it's symmetrical on both sides, or you end up committing this type of formation on the other side, because this is not an odd number group where you're going to have somebody naturally be right here. And especially if it's a group that's not known for synchronicity, that kind of stuff is automatically going to set them not the most for success. You know, and that's just me. I mean, that can be considered a hot take, and you don't have to agree with me, and that's fine. There's a reason why I'm here and you're there. That's totally fine, and you have the work. More power to you. I'm fine. I like the angles, and I appreciate this. This is fun, where you have your feature, boom, boom. She does complementary tunning movements when everybody else has great shapes as they present it out. It's just some minor fixing and adjusting of the angles. Nice little jack, little body roll to come up with the accent. Looks fine. I like that part. D-D-D-D-D. They triple it up. Everybody's matching the same degree of energy. Cool. Little swing, swing. She throws it up, boom, right here. Also note, it's still not their fault of why it feels off balance. You know, yeah, she's my feature is because her mouth's open. And I'm naturally going to keep looking at her until another person catches my eye and being either doing modification or doing something that's an outlier. That's something with K-pop groups. It's a very safe thing to naturally want to expect, is if there's somebody that's singing, I want to know who's singing without having to see who's mouthing the words, right? But also, this is a fixed cam. This is not a moving one. Like Lachika had a higher quality dance practice than they did here. You also have to call that what it is too. Some of these choices are catered to a specific cinematic perspective. I've talked about that with 17's Maestro specifically. There's certain parts of their formation that seemed off, and they're known as one of the most clean groups, but it looked off and it was a logistical thing. And so for me, I was trying to figure out what it was. When you look at the choreography version, you end up noticing, okay, some of the environmental formation is what helps create more fullness, and you see the polyrhythm distribution between the two groups. Was that their intention when they made the formation? I don't know. I wasn't there, you know, but that's all conjecture and educated guessing, and that's what I would have extend the same courtesy here in that case. You know, some of these choices were only given a fixed cam perspective, when in the music video, all the choreo looked freaking great. Like, I could see a lot of the imagery overlap in the music video. They didn't have to give out a dance practice, but they did, you know. For me, I'm like, woohoo, this is great, you know. Now, if they were messy in the music video, then we would have, you know, some questions. Just like 17 were freaking clean in the choreography version, but in the choreography concert shot, they were not the cleanest. Everybody did the house break dance, like the house dance break differently, you know. So, and I digress, but all that to say, it's that when people are critical of groups, because as you can tell, I'm kind of going up to bat for them here. If you're going to be critical of a group, you have to go across the board. If you're going to say that they're not clean here, you have to hold groups that are known for synchronicity to that same standard that you're putting yourself in your head, which isn't technically fair to anyone because they're human, right? And I also heard they're right in the middle of a concert schedule, just like I extended the same courtesy to 17, because they're right in the middle of a concert schedule too. So why in the world would I sit there and expect them to be perfect when they're human? And I understand the workload to a certain degree of physicality and the demand of that, and how physically difficult it is to do, you know. And so I digress, but I really don't understand why so many people are upset about this final course of the choreo when there's really only about 4 counts of deviation that looks awkward. But even then, it's a very simple fix. It's not like the whole choreo is ruined. They did a pretty decent job for a dance practice, you know? Anyway, so to take it, boom, doo-doo-doon, doon-doon. I like how we had different groups. You had half of them, or most of them actually drop to the mid, and then they had half the arms drop lower. And so we had a really nice level choice with the upper body, fun little peace sign moment. Our feature's the first one that moved, and she had a fun little accent to the front, and everybody had a nice chill vibe, and they accent to the middle. I really like this formation. This looks great right here. They slide it back in, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, and then look. Once again, this is the same formation that we technically just saw. That's why it still feels a little off in the balance. Walking through the little trot, trot, trot. Cool. Hitting it through, boom, little brush of the hair. Fun, very easy to note our feature. I mean, I already said what I said about this formation style, so I won't touch on it again. But how they pick up the feet, I like the mirroring to the inside. It's fun. And of course, having your feature in the middle, making it happen towards the middle, looks great. I like branching it up right here. You do notice this does feel a smidgen off. Why? It's because of this individual right here. You know, I think it's her positioning, all this first positioning is just very intriguing to me as to why we made these choices, because the best way to actually fix it, I mean, you have one of our girls right here, but it makes it look like her mirror is supposed to be my girl right here, but that's not the case because her mirror is technically over here, and that's why the arms look off. So I would say as a potential solution to that would be have everybody arms low, including hers, and the only person's arm that's up would be my middle girl, right? That would be kind of the best way to fix that without actually changing positions for anybody, because how this looks like, it reminds me of InMix with Dash. I said the same thing. I literally just talked about that with InMix. They did have a group of 7, but now they're a group of 6, but you're still dealing with off balance in a formation where it looks like somebody's missing, right? And so you don't want people guessing, something feels off here. The whole formation structure makes it feel like we're missing something, and that's not Ive's fault. And I'm not even going to blame Lachika either. I don't know the logistics of that kind of stuff, but what I ended up noticing in the Lachika demo is these formations existed there, so that's what they were taught. That's not something that they changed, if that makes sense. I digress, but the accent there, boom, boom, and I like the little sweeps around. That was fun, branching it through. Everybody kind of getting to do their own thing. Now, notice where are they looking? They're all looking to the diagonal. So that was clear to me even before I saw the Lachika demo. There's supposed to be a camera right here. So that is what it reminded me of. You have dance practices all the time that use cuts, or they have a moving version and it looks completely different than a fixed cam. Could they have done a moving version? Sure. But I'm perfectly content with a fixed cam. I prefer a fixed cam, and honestly too, give people the benefit of the doubt. I feel like people don't do that enough. Be considerate of the people, right? I mean, I like the fact that we even have this to talk about, you know, so they're aiming their entire attention to the corner. Their body is angled to the corner. And when you saw the demo, the camera was in the corner. So all of this visual was meant to be seen where? Context in the corner. So of course it's not going to look the same as us looking in the front shot. Dropping it down. When it comes to K-pop choreography, something that we always have to be mindful of is most of the time the choreography is not meant to be seen from a fixed cam perspective. Most of the time the camera works in collaboration with the movement director and the choreographer to make it to where it comes out with a certain visual. There's stuff, what is it, Overdose by EXO, and we're going to go way back Gen 3 to talk about this. There's a certain formation, when you see it as like a fixed cam, it looks freaking awkward. But whenever you actually see it in the dance practice, or you see it in the TV shows and the music video and performance versions, they go through the formation. So there's certain things that are made with the intention of the camera being collaborative in the certain integrity of how the content's supposed to be seen. And that's okay. This is not made to go on a stage for competition, you know? Even on Mnet, on the music shows, a lot of times choreo is not made for that. So I like the accent, having everybody signal back up. They're all still looking in this direction. So what this formation looks like is we're having a camera that's following our feature right here and having it travel to the back. I don't mind it. It looks cool. Very nice. The dun da da da. If you want to see a choreography of one where they ended up having multiple cameras and they switched between them in a dance practice, would be XG's, what is it? Thank God I'm Fly, TGIF. That's a perfect example of how they used multiple cameras to showcase different perspectives of the choreo the way that they wanted to, but still do it in a one take, you know? So I like the choice that she's looking to the front. It's the first time we're really seeing everybody go to the front, so they go, and now they've reset, you know? So that to me, that whole section was not meant to be seen from our angle. It was meant to be seen from a different angle, so why should I hold it to that expectation that I hold this next part, you know? I love this. I love how she just literally, the smoothness of how she got down in the all weight, that was pretty good. This part right here, once again, if you look, this formation would look symmetrical if you had one person right there. So I think my entire thing, when we talk about verse 2, you'll know exactly all the things that I'm talking about here, why it doesn't feel that way in verse 2. We'll talk through it. But here, that's why this feels off, because my dancer right here is in the same spot that my dancer right here is, but my dancer here should be a little bit more spaced out to match her mirror, which would be my girl right here. Because you can tell, based on how their arms are, they're creating some degree of symmetry, but then we have an outlier and an outlier, right? It kind of looks like we're going on a split center vibe, but if we have a 1-point feature, we don't need to entertain that, or we delegate different levels. That's something I know La Chica does very, very well, but I also know a lot of times I've seen their stuff, I've seen most of their stuff with them as a group, but a lot of times I've seen them navigate with a soloist, and they normally have a soloist with an even number group of dancers. Either have 4 girls, 4 guys, or 6 girls. Like, I just did a Chungha marathon, so I'm very familiar with La Chica choreo. So it's not an ignorance of La Chica. I'm very familiar with them compared to most choreographers. And I would say Choi Young-jun I can throw in there as well. And Mihawk. So I'm very familiar with a select few at this point. And this is interesting to me. If they had an odd number, none of these things would be an issue. I'm telling you that right now. Just because of how the choreography is structured. Right here, that's cool. I like this choice with the hands. It looks great. Love that choice. Digging it through, you have one of my girls dig to the side, but also notice stage left. We have a heaviness of 3, and then we have a subtlety of 2. So that's why it continues to feel off balance, more catered heavily to stage left. Up and down. On this part, ding ding. I like the little brush of the hands. It's cute. This is cute, spunky choreo. I like the choreo. It's cute. I love that choice. I do wish that we had a little bit more interaction of our first couple girls tapping off. I think that was such a cute little ripple peel down. My apologies. Sometimes that happens. That right there, boom, boom. Now look, this is nice. I appreciate the fact that now our center is entertaining more where these girls are on this side and these girls are on this side where you have 3 and 2, the opposite effect of what we saw earlier during verse 1. I like this Heya, Heya, Heya with the chest ISO, with the legato of control of the hands coming up. Looks, love that. Yep, that's super cute. All of this is really cute. I love that. Yeah, da-na-na-na-da-na. Cute. My one note here is, I mean, the only thing that could give me some form of influence of who my feature is would be she's the furthest up, but I personally would give as a note, just have a different way to showcase my feature if the formation isn't going to help. Establishing levels or having her deviate or modify so it's easier to see who my feature is in this moment, because right now it looks like we're splitting center, entertaining 2 different diagonals, and these do kind of fight for the same attention, and the only reason why I know she's my feature is because she's mouthing the words. I shouldn't have to rely upon that if you're looking at choreo, but then also, like I said, with that diagonal formation that was taking place, we could also chalk this up to this was probably meant for more of a close-ups where it was easier to know who your feature was. So there's always those types of things that we can learn to be considerate about for sure. I like the swing through the heel toe. I love that. And they expanded that range a little bit more and they reversed it. That was cute. I like it. And for this I wouldn't count this really that simple in the grand scheme of choreos, honestly. I mean, I know some of the things I was looking at was a couple years old, so maybe it was just their earlier works may have gone through a stint of repetitiveness and simplicity. This isn't simple. I mean, if you want to equate to there's a lack of level representation in the first half, yeah, but that's not their fault. That's how they learned it. You know, La Chica didn't have levels represented either, even in the demo. Also, I would say some of the dynamic choices, they had some really nice ripples and choices, but they do have some reversals in this right here. If you don't know how to isolate, this is hard to do by having this stay nice and control in a speed change while having an isolation of the torso. So I like the subtlety of that. That's cute. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. They're also doing, they're not doing the same thing on the same side 4 times. They go 1, 2, and then they double it up on the next side. You know, it's cool. I've also been an advocate over the past couple months, especially if you've been on Patreon, you've heard me talk about this, a huge advocate to girl choreo, because a lot of people, I've heard from so many different people that some people low-key dog girl choreo in comparison to boy choreo. I have done both. I have just takes on both. I can do both. And I'm very familiar with movement qualities of genres that are affiliated with boy group choreo and girl group choreo. It depends on what your body is familiar with. If I'm somebody who has a crump background, this style is going to be harder for me to do because of the posture in which I have to hold. And the same can be said if I'm more familiar with whacking or I'm familiar with Vogue, I can handle Stay Tonight or I'm Ready by Chungha, but maybe doing a Stray Kids routine is going to be a little bit harder, or an ATEEZ routine is going to be a little bit harder. Why? The exact same reason. How you hold yourself and your posture is different. So just because somebody has this amount of dance experience or this amount of dance experience, it doesn't equate to whether or not your body is implicitly understanding the textures and choreographic intention of your choreographer. You know, it is a choreographer's job to really utilize the toolkit of the members that they have on the job. That's definitely something that I think is an appropriate expectation, but sometimes that's not the case. I think they did a pretty good job on Lachika's stuff, and I think Lachika did a great job on the choreography and the content. Do I think levels could be very helpful? In the first half, yes. Do I also think that maybe figuring out different, more creative ways to showcase 1-point features with an even number group in the beginning? Yes, I do. But Lachika's not the only group that I've noticed this deviation or issue with. It's not even an issue, it's an observation. You know, it's just, it's something that ends up, I think, stacking with all the other things that people are upset about. Now, notice with my feature here, she bled it up, but she went a little bit higher. I think she should have done what happened in the Lachika demo is she kept her arms up the whole time. Very clear for me to know who my feature is. Here, it looks like she deviates or does it wrong, and then I can tell, ah, she's my feature because she bleeds up the energy higher. They keep theirs more mid right here on the line, not mid in energy and effort, but like in the midline, like in the middle. So it's fine. It looks fine. I like the subtlety there. Boom. So they dive it down the body roll and then they swing those arms up. Looks great. Da, 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 like the claw. I appreciate the intention of they're not just grazing it across the face, because notice this type of hand and this type of hand give a different vibe. So you can tell there's intention happening with their hand placement. I like that choice. And then, of course, one of my girls, she doubled up and did a little staccato moment with her head, and everybody else did a little dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Cute. And they bring it up, and then one of my girls walk forward. This doesn't really bother me that much because they're nice and still, and she walks up from a formation that was established. Looks great. I like that part. That little da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't mind it. They have their arm nice and strong. They're not letting it deviate too much. I appreciate it. My feature is still featuring. I love it. She pulls it in. Now from verse 2, I freaking love it. Like, I think it's awesome. This right here, chef's kiss. Let's talk about it. The little note right here. Love it. They're like da-da-da-da-da. Beautiful mirror transition between my 2 mirrors here and my 2 mirrors here. I love that, and they didn't move. It was beautiful. Look how symmetrical this is. Ah, chef's kiss. Everybody committed to the same degree of the transition. Yes, I love this. This is exactly what we ended up seeing from the Lachika demo. Now, did one of my dancers, I think it was Simi's, who really committed to it? Yeah, because she can. She's a professional dancer. I totally get that. Ive is not known for being high caliber, elite level dancers, but it doesn't mean that what they're doing is not good. I think they're doing a freaking great job not being known as dancers. Or maybe they are, and just the information wasn't informationing for me, you know? But they're holding it down pretty well for doing the choreo. I like the balance of that. I like how she dropped it down and they had a nice little accent. That was fun. I like the playfulness of this. The switch, switch, switch. This whole part right there, I like the switch out. It did feel like we were going for a canon a little bit here, but not 100%. So actually it was a little add-on. So it was an add-on, and then on the third part, we broke away and then we created these really fun angles. I love this angle choice. This is really cool because you have half of them on a lower. You got half that are, well, actually you have 3 that are mid. But then you have 3 that are high, but it creates really nice, it's a really nice angle. I like it. This is cool. Love that. And then we go. Little sweep around the head, and then we take our hands and we flap them up. It's symmetrical because you got 3 integrating on one side, 3 on the other side. Love it, pulling it in. And then look, once again, the tricky thing with even numbers is that somebody's going to be sacrificed in the back. So that's why we got to be creative with level representation, which we do end up seeing here, about right here. I like this part right here. She goes, oh, she melted in, da-da-da. I think she could have sunk in a little bit deeper just so we can see our back girl with her head pop up just a smidge, but I also like the framing of this as well. Looks just as nice as the other one. She bleeds in, do-do-do. Then you have, it's a nice circle, and then you have a fun little reveal in the back. God, I love that. This was so fun. This is what I honestly wanted to see in the beginning all the way through. I think we would have had no issues there. So if you're somebody, because I've had people ask me, they've said there's something missing about this, I just can't put my finger on it. That could be what it is. The first half is, it feels like you're missing someone. That's what it feels like to me. And then in the second half, it feels like we got everybody. But also some people let their first impressions really influence how they perceive the whole thing. Going in, I was expecting this to be a hot mess express, and I'm pleasantly surprised. And it also makes me think some people blew this out of proportion. I'm not talking about anybody on the YouTube side who sent me a request on this. I'm talking more so about when I dug my own digging, and I was seeing how some people were talking about this choreo. I was like, bless it. Have you ever seen a dance practice video, even from some of your favorites? Not a single person has had every single dance practice, including 17, including Stray Kids, including the boys. Not a single group has gone through every single dance practice with the cleanest routine in the world. And that's okay. Why? They're human. So is it okay that for a group that's not known for dance to not have the most in sync, clean, and range and timing stuff? Yes, I totally think that's okay, because if you look at the music video, they were in check. It was clean, it was clear. I knew exactly what they were going for, and I'm a happy camper for this, if I'm being real. Honestly, they branched the arms up, and some of them look like they're using their back more than some of the girls groups that are known for choreography are using. A lot of those groups, they use their arms. They don't use their back, so there's not as much power behind their choices. They're just clean and range, so people are more forgiving. I'm not talking about any group of marathon. I'm talking about my natural exposure of K-pop over the years. I like that choice where they hit it, da-na-na-na. It feels like a vibe. It feels like they're taking a more conversational, laid-back approach to this. It doesn't feel like they're bah. It doesn't call, that choreography's not structured that way. It doesn't feel that way. Do I think they could go more full out? Always. I feel like most groups could, but in this context, I really don't think they're all making the same concessions together, so it looks more purposeful and intentional than like one person really going for it and everybody else not. That's a bigger issue, and I noticed that with, I think Psychers have gone through that, and AATs went through that too, and I talked about it with both groups. I like that choice. I really like that choice. That was a fun little add-on, little canon action right there. Yeah, it's cute. I mean, I think there's some girls that kind of looks like they may be not 100% sure on like taking ownership of a particular movement. It kind of looks like that, not a I'm so fatigued. It's a just like clarification thing. That's what it looks like more so. But once again, I don't really blame them for that as much. This is one of the most gorgeous formation choices right here. Because look, you got a group of 3 in the top, a group of 3 in the bottom. So you got 2 different levels represented. Check mark. We love to see it. Everybody is seen. They also have really good framing of the face. Of course, it can always be cleaner. Every group can always be cleaner. That's fine. They're not robots, they're human. And thirdly, they're making it to where it's not the back 3 that are up and the bottom 3 that are down. They went the every other route, and I really like that. It creates depth in the formation. So I think this is one of my favorite formation choices of the whole thing. It looks great. Yeah, da-da-da. And I love that choice. Then they all committed. Notice they're all committed with the chest to really make those arms when they shot back out in staccato really nice and full. That looks great. And then you have everybody up at the top, accenting, looks great. I like the subtlety. Da-da-da-da. Yep, dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee. Once again, very clear what we're going for. Dee-dee-dee, dee-dee-dee. And they nice and suspended just a little bit more. They do a little speed change accent to something a little bit slower. Looks great. My feature right here is the only one deviating from this move right here, but notice everybody has to commit to this move in order for the outlier to naturally be seen and not make it look like, who do I need to look for? I'm not having to compete for attention for these types of moments, which means they're clean to a certain degree, to an acceptable degree, you know, which I think is fine. Da-da-da. Yeah, some of them kind of overshot that position. I would say really try to lock up with the arms and then allow it to move over and let that back control that, or keep those forearms glued. It's cool. And then right here, heya, heya, heya. Yeah, one of them, I think she had to modify her feet in order to make sure she didn't trip the other girl that was walking forward. That's what I noticed there. So that's something that could just be a traveling little fix, something along those lines. Then you have everybody pull through. I like that choice. A lot of them are leading with the sternum. Looks great. That tummy now, cute. I think that's cute. Yep, Heya, Heya, reverse right there. Same choreo as what we saw before. I like the formation choice. The choreo is interesting enough, and please note, I have seen a ton of choreography outside of K-pop that is adjudicated on a particular, like, when I look at a lot of choreography, when I see it, a lot of times the intention of that choreography is justifying criteria where formations and levels are a standard to be adjudicated by. And so I'm used to seeing a lot of level representation, and I'm used to seeing content having to have some degree of creativity to maintain captivation, even if you don't have levels or staging or spacing or other dynamics to help cater to making that content more interesting. Here in this case, yes, they entertain a lot of unison. I think it looks fine. Something I've learned with my own dancers is that if you have a group, because I've heard that this group doesn't have a lot of people they're not equally yoked in skill level. In this case, when I'm looking here, I can see deviations, but they're not so big where I'm like, ooh, that girl's the worst dancer. Ooh, that girl's the best dancer. It doesn't come across like that to me. But I also know my intention and how I'm looking at this is it really as bad as some people are making it out to be? God, no, it is not. I have seen so much worse. And this is not even my top 25 worst routines I've seen in my life. Trust me. In the professional scene, I'll even go that specific. Not K-pop, in the professional scene, I've seen some hot mess expresses. But this is not one of those, in my humble opinion. And hopefully I'm doing a decent enough job of explaining why I feel that way. I'm always open to learning other perspectives from people. And I'm also not somebody who's like, I'm going to die on this hill either. I'm definitely open to hearing more perspective, but I'll go up to bat for people if I think that people are being a little too harsh and not extending enough grace to a group. I'll 100% do that. And that's kind of how I'm doing this right now. Some of you who may be looking at this like, Jessica, tear into it. I'm just as constructive with this group as I am with every other group, but I also know the lane that they're pursuing K-pop in too, so I can't hold them to the same standard as the boys in terms of synchronicity, because they're not known for that, right? Just like Very Very. They're not known like Very Very for synchronicity, so I'm going to talk about Very Very's choreography differently than theirs. And that's okay. Same with Dreamcatcher if we want to use a girl group reference. Dreamcatcher and Ive are not the same group, so I shouldn't hold them to the same standard. Also, Dreamcatcher has an odd number, so they can get away with these same formations, but it looks symmetrical because they have an odd number to justify it. But I digress. That part right there, I do think we could use more power with the back for sure. It does, if everybody utilizes the same energy in the same spaces, it's going to naturally make it feel and project in the same ballpark and range of what angles you're trying to go for as well. So, I like the subtlety of that. Digging it through, the double it up. Same chord as we've seen before. And I also like the twinkling of this. I think that's cute. It adds a nice little embellishment to the hands. It doesn't just make it one-dimensional. It adds some depth to it. It's cute. Fun. Da-da-da. And then you have my other girl. Notice, I appreciate this, probably a logical choice, and maybe they are applying something that I was talking about in the very beginning. Notice that my girl who deviated is on the opposite side as the first time, and that creates better balance than only having this deviation or this new feature come out from the same side every time. So now she's come out from stage right. Is it the same girl? I don't know, but all I can remember is that particular difference happened, but now it's on the opposite side, so it feels more complete in this regard. Da-da-da-da-da. So I like that everybody blooded up there. Looks fun. I appreciate that everyone's leading with the back of the wrist. Looks great. I like how she takes it. Nice little moment of her bleeding it around, and then they take the claw. And then my other girl, she deviates. Once again, boom, different girl. She takes it, accents it in a different way. The pull there, da-da-da-da-da-da. The pull through, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Little pas de bourrées. The shoulder, I like that. Dee-dee-dee, boom, boom. Do I think they could definitely use more groove in this? For sure. Absolutely. Groove comes from the torso is what I'm talking about. I think having more ground in it, so if they actually added a bounce to this, I think it would have made a bigger difference too. That's cool. Also factor in, let's talk about this as well. Lachika's the choreographers. They cannot control the final product. They're the choreographers. If they're the movement directors, that's something different. Lachika or Rian with Changha, she is the movement director as well. So she gets to control the entirety of the routine and how it comes across in a cinematic lens. Does Lachika just set choreo for them and then they have somebody in-house that does the cleaning and does the movement direction? Possibly. A lot of people don't understand those are different roles. Some choreographers are fortunate enough to be gifted with the skill sets to doing multiple roles. Some choreographers are not. Lachika has the opportunity to be able to be a movement director with a lot of other individuals and artists. Do they have the same degree to be able to do that here? I don't know. Maybe Starship, which I believe is the company they're under, they're the ones that are in charge of all the in-house maintenance of the choreography and things like that. So do I blame Lachika for the lack of groove or the lack of cleanliness in some of these facets? No, I don't. I don't blame them for anything. I will still hold them though to that interesting choice of making the formations what they were in the very beginning, but I really loved what happened in the middle for sure. And then also, you could tell part of this looked like it was intended for a ton of dancers, but we still ended up with just these 6. Do they end up using dancers in other facets? Was it in budget? That I don't know. But Lachika, you know, they probably had multiple drafts and they just put them together because who knows what they were asked to do. Like a lot of companies have a lot of back-end things they ask choreographers to do that we don't even get to see what the final result is until the final result is out. So I don't blame Lachika for any of these things. I don't blame Ive for really any of these things either, nor do I blame the team. I just think that it's just whoever was in charge of cleaning the group, they may not know how to clean the group to where they all look successful in the grooves and posture of Lachika specifically for this context of this type of genre of track. I also don't know. I know Lachika's done other work with Ive, so I may take a look at that in the future just so I can get a better lens on this. But some of these choices, yeah, they look a bit over isolated, and a simple bounce would really change and make it feel like it matches the heaviness of that change and shift in the music. But it's not so awkward that it turns me off from watching, if that makes sense. I have a choice, da-da-da, you can clearly see what the hip syncopation on that is. And then you have one of our girls, she's the only one who didn't face the back. That looks fine. The double on that, she double taps with the hip, looks great. They rotate it around. The little D-D-D-D, the body roll looks great. Ding-ding with a switch, I love that. But also look, she's the middle and she's more in front, but it also is off-balanced once again. So that's just what we see. But I like this bleed down. It's fun having one of your dancers. She's right there in the back. They create this nice little level choice. I do think we could have sunk just a smidgen lower. My dancer here. So it really feels like a fun little like bar, but I do like it because you can clearly see our feature. It's a fun choice. I like the choice. Melting it down, they branch it up. Some of them got it up a little too early. Some are bleeding it very well. So it's just clarification on how long you want to take to get to that position. Then they bring it back down, looks nice. The walkthrough is fun, I like that. It was very clear to see what my next feature is. I like that choice, doesn't really bother me that much. Everybody making their own choice, and honestly it looks like you have 2 of them doing the same thing. And then you have, it looks like these 3 are kind of doing the same thing, and then you have one person doing kind of her own thing. Let me see. She's dipping down. You have 2 people that are dipping down. Huh, okay. You have one, she's a little bit higher. She's dipping down, she's dipping down. She looks like these 2 are doing around the same thing. She's going the opposite. And what is she doing? That's interesting. Hold on. Ah, and then she ends up matching what's going on with my girl right here. So we ended up switching who our partners were in who's doing what choreo. So that could have looked a bit, I do think having certain sections that are significantly cleaner, like if this section was cleaner, everybody was on the same page to what degree of their body is hinged over, what degree that arm is going to be expanding out, that would have read better. I also feel that everyone's kind of entertaining the same level, and that's why it feels more mumbled. But what we're going to do is, hold on. I ended up finding the part that Lachika did in the demo because I need to see what they ended up doing. So this is the walkthrough. Now look what they do. So you have 1, 2, you have 2 with the little rana jumps. They're mirrored. They have, so the hinges are what creates the level. That's what we're seeing here. But if you look here, the girls are not committing in the hinge enough, and that's why it feels a bit muddled. So that would be a note for them. That would be whoever chose to clean it. Because Lachika, I don't think, was in charge of cleaning the choreography. Because it's just the girls, right? I would have had them really try to hinge a little bit further over in order to allow the difference to be a lot more clear. I also noticed with the Lachika demo, it was this section right here. I like that part. All this is pretty similar to what Lachika ended up doing. Maybe it's subtly different, but this right here, they do have it curled over to the back, so it was nice to see. I think the fixed cam in comparison to Lachika's version with their moving cam for that part, I think that part, it was harder to see, but also I think they were creating more of a semicircle vibe. But in this choreo, they also are making a semicircle vibe, but it does tend to make it feel more of like a straight line. So that's why for me, I mean, you could still probably get away with having her still dip just a little bit lower to create this visual. So if you saw it from the side, it'd be a really nice visual, and from the front, so you can see everybody. But I digress from there. Great moment. She walks through like that, bleeds them away. Yeah, they could have dipped a lot lower here. Really committed there. Is it a hamstring thing? I don't know. I don't work with them. This is, once again, the first time I'm seeing them. Yep, tell me now. And then let me watch. I'm going to watch Lachika once more. I like that part. So notice they're really using more fullness of the body, usage of the back, more rotation. Every day, cute. Hey, the switch up, cool. So you have, I think it was Simi's. Yeah, that right there, they have no power going into their arms. Why? They're not using their back at all. They're not using their chest to help with any rotation elements, which is why it may feel a bit underwhelming. You know, but also, they did a one take. Lachika has not done a one. That's not a one take that we're seeing from them. So, could they do it? Easily. I really do think so. So I'm not saying they didn't, but also you're comparing a one take. They've been dancing for 2 minutes and 45 seconds at this point, and Lachika has multiple takes to get the ideal format. I think both are acceptable and both are fine, so you can't technically compare the two as effectively as some of you may want. It's not the same thing. So I'm not going to, unless Lachika also did a fixed cam full demo, you know, then you can't sit there and say Lachika did it better. I mean, they're professional dancers too, and they choreographed it, so they're going to choreograph it subconsciously to their wheelhouse of movement quality, but factor in the girls as well. So I do see them factored in. I think it's fun. I do think a lot of the choices are doing it, and you can tell that cleanliness, like they're taking cleanliness and approaching it. But also I want to talk about this, because when I clean competition choreography, I clean recreation, intermediate, and elite level pre-professional choreography. I've also adjudicated elite level choreography in a mega crew setting. So I'm very familiar with what to look for with synchronicity and cleanliness and having it adjudicated as such. When you clean choreo, here's the first thing that's going to go bye-bye. Anything that is new or explicitly learned. So things that are not a part of your day-to-day movement quality are going to go bye-bye first. And when it comes to studio dancers, a lot of times if they do not have a heavy street styles or street dance styled wheelhouse of posture and they're used to ballet or more structured styles like that in posture, when you do a more like, not really masculine, but more grounded rock and bounce, old school style, like a funk style, it's not the same as ballet at all. And so their movement quality is going to shift more towards the stiffer side of things because their body is used to that and it's fluent in that movement quality as a studio trained dancer in that regard. So in this case, I don't know their dance training. What I can say though is that they do not have an extensive street dance style background. I can tell that with how they're carrying their torso and how they're choosing to sit their weight in their body. And that's not 100% their fault. You know, I do always want idols and everybody, regardless of how seasoned and veteran and professional you are, to always continue to grow. I remember it was in Street Woman Fighter season 2, there was a statement that was made by one of the members of a crew talking about Latrice's movement quality and how, you know, it was just an interesting comment that was made, and I made my point known there that it's your job as a dancer to train and continue learning and growing to be ready to approach choreography and styles like that. It is not anybody else's fault if you can't get it except yourself if you are a professional dancer and you're in charge of your training. Does that make sense? You can't blame somebody else's implicit movement quality for why you didn't get picked. Like, does that kind of make sense? I feel so. I mean, all of this, I am also coming at it from like a mama bear standpoint of like, don't be coming after a group if you can't justify with every other group that you stand or this, that, and the other. If you're going to criticize a group, be prepared to also hold your own group accountable to that too, because every group goes through it. It just depends on the comeback. And that's real talk. So I say all that to say they would really do, I think what would really help them if they ever watch this, think about the upper back and engaging that to create more power in these choices and thinking about where their weight is going and how they're sitting their weight through. Because notice they're actually catering their weight more to the balls of the feet in reference to the near closer to the back of the heels. I can see that because of how they're arching the back as well. You can see where they're catering their weight. It's more here. They're not really sitting anywhere near the back of their feet at all. And that some of it is more so their, physical choices, all that kind of stuff. I can tell some are more neutral. I can tell what gets clean and what doesn't, And also to reiterate what I was saying about cleanliness is that if there was a chance that they were doing a lot of these choices that you saw Lachika do in the demo, they're more naturally inclined to do that kind of choreo. Remember, I've seen a ton of Lachika content off of like recording. I've seen a lot of it. But when you look here, they don't have that same implicit movement quality. So when they clean it, that's going to be the first thing that goes away, are those things that may look really good. But if you don't catch it and put it back in, you're going to end up with something that's a little bit more muted, which is what you see here. I deal with it every single year when I clean choreography. I have to re-put in texture, re-put in groove, re-put in a lot of movement quality that they lose because we clean the timing, the range of angles and positions of some of their content choices in their choreo. In my own stuff and in outside choreographers who come in, that right there, all of this, it does look marked, and that is the reason why. Switching through, heya, 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 looks cool. Digging it through. Once again, she does the thing. And I honestly, because I was sitting here talking, I completely missed my girl transitioning over. It all depends on what you look for. So going from here, let's actually talk about it again. Heya, 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 da-na-na. Now this part here, it does look like we have two girls transition, right? Da-da-da. And then you have one girl transition all the way back here. And then you have these girls do like a little, like a ripple is really what that looks like. And so it just doesn't look 100% clear because they don't have power behind their movement. And there's also not levels that are helping that either. Yeah, so I did hear on Reddit, because I did dive a little deeper before I got into this because I knew what this type of video was going to be. It really just, honestly, it depends on context of what happens next. Tell me now. Okay, so solution to this, honestly, I think could have been, because I appreciate how we ended up spreading back out, but one of my girls didn't really move at all in these two moves. So what they could have done in solution to this particular formation is have these girls, have her end up in the middle, have her move over to the side, or have my girl here and my girl here switch, and then you have the back row completely like rechange their spots. That would have been something I would have workshopped right there, because I also too, I do try to train my dancers within the skill set of being vocal on if something feels a little bit tricky to travel, or they say, hey, it feels like can you watch me this time? I feel like I'm traveling really far. And I think that's personally a very, at least in my neck of the woods, in my personal scope, because with these artists, I want them to be comfortable and I want them to be set up for success. So if one of them is vocal and saying, hey, it does feel like I'm having to travel really far, I'm struggling to get to my spot, can you look at it and see if there's something I need to modify? I end up training my dancers to learn to be vocal respectfully in that way. And just in case, because sometimes I miss things, right? And this does look different than what ends up happening in the Lachika demo. All this here, notice they have a ton of dancers. Yeah, all this is using the back. Yeah, so what ended up happening too is you had one of our girls, she completely made a nice little, more commitment. They all created this like rotational formation here. But in this case, in the other one, it looks like they didn't do that. Yeah, so what happened is she just ended up staying where she was. There was no traveling to be had except for one of my girls. And that's why she stuck out. And this honestly validates a point that I've made on multiple videos. I think Luna is an example of a group that does it so well that I've looked at their work. And it's when you have people that transition, but they mirror within the transition, or there's balance in the transition. In this case, there is an imbalance taking place here, and that's why it sticks out. Now, is it a big enough imbalance that negates the entirety of the dance practice? No, not at all. Do I think this last segment could be more powerful? Yes, especially for the climactic ending of the track. But once again, they're not doing anything that makes me think, wow, they really fell short here. Like, I'm not really thinking that at all. I also know they're probably heavily fatigued because they're on concert tour right now. If this was like a typical comeback, this is the only thing they're focused on, that would make more sense to hold them to that degree of accountability. Also, this is why I do K-pop marathons, because I'm coming into this as somebody who's never seen any of their other work before, so I don't have anything to reference off of on whether or not this is an improvement or a regression of their previous stuff. So I know that going in too, so you can take what I'm saying with that in mind if I'm coming across as potentially out of pocket, or I'm advocating for something that doesn't technically make sense to those of you who are fans of the group. You know, I am very open to discussions, and I'm very intrigued on the discussions because I've had a lot of you ask me to look at this, but I also want you to know this is the context I'm looking at it at. I have not done a full marathon of this group, so I'm not going to have the best lens I could potentially have if I have looked at all their stuff. So I know that too. Hey, tell me now. But they do a pretty decent job. Like that part right there, that looks great. It's really that only little formation spot that I would have taken a look at. Yep, da-da-da-da-da, the little bleed ups look fun. The switch here, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee, and then of course you have the same choreo. And also it is a trend where a lot of groups are gonna have the first two courses are the same and the last course is different. And because this particular choreo is about the same as the first two, that's why it feels redundant or repetitive. It doesn't really bother me as much because they did have a different beginning of the breakdown, if that makes sense. Bleeding through. We have a nice little finish. I do like some of their choices. I like that individual choice. That was cute. Da-dum, da-dum, dum, dum. And then they finish. But it also doesn't look balanced because you can see everybody and you have somebody here. Then you have one girl hanging out over here on stage left when part of me wishes that we had my girl right here move center, have my girl here drop down, and have my girl here be standing, you know, having that rotational so you have a true like semicircle vibe. Literally just stick somebody right here and you got yourself a symmetrical balanced finish. But the beginning and the end were not balanced or symmetrical. So that's why it may be feeling like we're missing a member, because right now most of the formations are catered to an odd numbered group. Or a soloist that has an odd numbered, like, does that kind of make sense? So that's my gist in all of this. Did I come across as harsh? I'm sorry if I did. Whenever I hear that a group is getting bashed for something, I'm like, let me really see. And actually seeing it here, I'm like, it's really not bad at all. You know, I think there's always some things that could improve, but the structure of the choreo looks fine. I just have my big underlying note is a note that I've given to quite a few groups at this point that operate at an even number, and most of the time it is not them. It is a note to the choreographer or the movement director or whoever's in charge of cleaning the routine. If you want people who are the general public or people who are not fans of the group to take note or appreciate what the group is doing, because a lot of times you're not going to control who watches these videos, you want to be able to set the group up for success to be viewed at with a sense of, I can tell this is a group of 6, or wow, they did a really good job on creating balance and symmetry, or I really like the individuality of this group. You know, you want to leave people wanting to express more compliments than critiques. But also too, it's not the responsibility of them to keep the general public in check either. So like, I understand that too. Some people just need to be a little bit kinder to themselves and be kinder to the things that they watch, because I personally feel I personally don't think they deserve as much criticism as I've heard they've been getting for this. I think there's been bigger groups that I've looked at, not on YouTube. So I'm not talking about any group in particular. This is isn't an Easter egg or anything, but there have been other groups that I've looked at where I'm like, this is not hitting, and I told you why, and I spent a long time talking about it. And so it's, for me, I just think that it does make me intrigued on what their future work's going to be, and I do want to look at their past stuff, but I do have a lot of stuff that I am scheduled to take a look at. So maybe Ive will come back up in the future for me if I have a Patreon member that requests it. But I'm here as an individual who is a choreographer. I have adjudicated mega crews and groups of this size from an elite level standpoint. I've also, I teach dancers who have various different toolkits of movement qualities. This is not a bad routine. This is not a bad setup. That ending, there's only one formation transition discrepancy, and that takes probably about 5 minutes to fix. You know, and I wish that there was somebody that fixed it or made it to where it was more applicable to the group and found a hybrid compromise. But I don't think it's anybody's fault, so I don't think we should be pointing the finger at anybody. I think this was a pretty decent dance practice, to say the least. Before we officially sign off on this routine, I did hear the studio choom was another part of the choreographic perspective that people were talking about. So we do have that pulled up. It's the Be Original camera work one. I do know they have a full focus version, but I'm equating that to the equivalence of what we saw in the dance practice. So I'm going to look at this one to see what the camera, like the cinematic side of it, looks like, to see if it helped enhance or make some of the choices look more awkward. So we're going to look at it here, and we're going to dive into it. Probably not, because I already literally just analyzed the whole thing. See, look, there's the angle. I think she could have used her back more to showcase those choices. It did feel like we were kind of trapped a little bit here. So if people are saying that this is a little bit on the simpler side, the type of choreography, it's not the simplest that I have seen. That right there is not simple to do. This, it's not. These choices, I like them. They're fun. There's a lot of unison. And that's not really there. That's not 100% their fault either. If they had more add-ons, if they had more ripples, more cannons, that kind of stuff, more level representation, that can help with counterbalancing a lot of the content. Because if you do a ton of unison, and I talked about this with Maestro, with 17, because that came out recently, and so that's one I did a huge thing on. When you got a lot of unison, it either has to be really complex and captivating, or you're gonna lose people. All these formation choices, I freaking love this second verse. It's the best part of the whole thing. I love it. If we saw that kind of spunkiness with everybody, with these types of formation choices in that first verse, it would have helped alleviate so much of these unison choices. And it's not really anybody's fault. It's just we didn't focus on all the right things with the time frame that we were given, because we also don't know how much time they had to work on this. Because I remember Stray Kids and Megaverse, I tore into that one because they looked like they were marking the whole thing. But it was a turnaround time issue for them. So who knows how much time they actually had realistically to do this choreo. But they're doing a pretty good job holding it down for the most part. Those camera angles I think could be better, but that's not their fault. That's choom's fault. That's a fun visual. I don't mind that. How do they film this part? So she's ending up holding herself as a feature to maintain that feature spot, but what it ends up looking like is she forgot the choreo because it's not syncopated enough with the other choices in the choreography to showcase polyrhythms or how they're hitting everything at the end. So let me rephrase what I just said. So this little ending right here, because that is the biggest thing that people are all super upset about. If they're going to be upset about anything, it's that, which I get, but once again, it would take about 5 minutes to fix that. I like that little tease that she did there. That was cute. Now you have one of them really move. I do think that would have been a really good strategic choice to fix, is having her switch out with somebody else in the back row, and that would have made the traveling not, she would have had somebody else that travels with her, so it wouldn't look as awkward. But also in the La Chica demo, everybody traveled, so I wonder if that was a problem, that there was too much fullness in the transition for them to get where they needed to go for the vocals that they needed, or that was just something that was lost in the cleaning process, because that stuff happens too. But notice that my feature right here, she's ending up creating, and I noticed it when I did my final pass of the dance practice, before wrapping up, is she's holding this position, but how she holds it, there's not enough distinction between my groups here in order to make her not look like an outlier, like she forgot something. Everybody, it would be recommended for everybody to do the same thing, so she sticks out in a good way of like she's purposely deviating for the sake of being a feature. But if you have somebody that's doing something different all by herself, then you have two that are doing the same thing, and then another group of two doing the same thing, and then you have somebody else who's an outlier, but these two that are outliers are not complementing each other in what they're doing. That's why it looks messy, is that there's too many subgroups going on. And that's exactly what I said about it was a Wakey Wakey by NCT 127, but everybody was fine with that one, but that one threw me for a freaking loop a lot more than this one did, you know? So I kind of feel like it's in the eye of the beholder a lot of times. And if you're somebody that is critical of groups, then, I mean, you're gonna get people like that. And if you have people that don't have that critical lens on things, you're gonna get people that don't understand either. So I think, like, at the end of the day, everyone has a right to their own opinion. But I also think too, if you look at this with a degree of like, if you look at it in any sort of objective, is you remove yourself from the groups that you stand, and you just look at the K-pop industry as a whole, 4th generation and 5th generation are heavily known more for dancing than full package like Gen 2, you know? Because if Gen 2 pulled this, people would not be nearly as upset as I've heard them being in this day and age about it, right? So I personally think people really put dance as a heavier priority, and so there's going to be naturally more projection of expectation onto groups unless they're known as a ballad group. And so I also think it's just the type of times that we're in as to why maybe they're under fire a little bit more for this. But I don't think La Chica made bad choreo. I think this looks fine, and even if I didn't know La Chica choreographed it, I like a lot of the choices, but I would say the same thing if it was La Chica or Leah Kim or Cho Young-jun. I mean, I've said it about any choreographer, and I'm under and held to the same standard too. I would say it about my own work. If I was noticing it, I'd be like, that looks off, you know? And I gotta hold myself to the same degree of standard too, but I also know I come from a studio background, and I work with a lot of pre-professionals, and for dancers in training, I don't work with a ton of professionals, but I have experience adjudicating and giving feedback and analyzing professionals. So my skill set is still applicable here, but just in a different way. But all that to say, I like the song. The song's cool, and I think how they did it in the music video was freaking sick. Thank you guys for watching. I am actually very intrigued on the commentary for this from you guys, especially if you're a fan of this group. I want to hear from you. What are some things that would help me in context moving forward when I take a look at this group? What are they actually known for? Are they known for live performances? Are they known for their singing? Are they known for their dancing? And I just couldn't find it in the depths of Reddit and Twitter and Google, you know, because remember, I try to find out as much information as I can, especially during circumstances like this when people ask me to take a look at a controversial choreography. But for me, I just think that this just looks like a dance practice. I think, of course, they could definitely perform more full, but I don't think there was anything that they did that's outside of that one little bit near that tail end that shouldn't give them any sort of grief over. So I hope they're not affected immensely by the public opinion on this, but I understand that they could. But I'm telling you, if I've ever watched this, girls, you did a good job. I think you guys handled it pretty well, and for girls who may not be known for being like heavy dancers, you guys held it down pretty well in the La Chica choreo, because they do carry a lot of this, and you guys were able to hold a lot of it down. So I know it's possible. There were just some things that can always be improved on, and I am looking forward to seeing more from the group, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everybody. So once again, my name is Jess. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.